Bonjour, je m'appelle Boris Champo. Bienvenue à la maison. So this is part 2 in the state loadout series. We're going to do stuff a little bit different. I got some B-roll going in the background. This was a massive project. I've already recorded 2 out of 3 sections, but I'm just going to start from scratch. I'm completely throwing it out the window, and essentially the state loadout, the winner of the poll was Florida, and there's just so much information. I was trying to break it up into regions and not generalize it, but each section was about an hour long, so I had already about 3 hours of footage, and it just wasn't going to work. I mean, out of 5 or 6 sections, we were looking at a 5 or 6 hour video, and yes, I was going into like autistic detail on how to do stuff. But no, we're just starting from scratch. We're going to hit, generalize. I hate to do it, but Florida is such a very diverse state. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, the state loadout series is how the civilians of a state could fight back against a standing army. Now, I'm not talking about like domestic, domestic anything. We're talking more like foreign invasion, Russia, China, Egypt, Turkey, Iran, whatever invades the U.S. Let's say that this state was the only state to exist. The rest of the United States don't exist, whatever. Pretend that the people don't exist, the military don't exist. How the civilian populace would fight back against an invading force. That's kind of the theme. Now, yeah, schizo, whatever. This is mainly for fun, but it's also for education and entertainment. So let's kind of get into it. So looking at Florida, I zoomed in a lot and everything up on the map and looked. I visited Florida a lot. I had a half brother that lived down there for a while. It is a very, very diverse state. It's also a peninsula, and this comes into play when we start talking about naval warfare, which, like it or not, we are going to have to talk about naval warfare towards the end of this. Being a peninsula and surrounded, you got the Gulf on one side, the ocean on the other side, and then Cuba and the water down at the bottom. We have to sit here and talk about this because a lot of the warfare is going to be naval warfare, which definitely an asymmetric thing when you're going up against the guerrilla force. So, moving past that, I did not realize how much national land, Everglades, there was all kinds of like national forests and stuff down there. I didn't realize how much national land was actually down in Florida, and most of it is swamp. Most of it is thick forested area, looks like. There's some changes in elevation, but towards inland, like in the midsection of Florida, it's kind of flat. So I want to take this time to really talk about guerrilla warfare as a whole. So guerrilla warfare is typically, civilians acting as militants for a cause. It is asymmetric, which means you're going up against a force that has more equipment, more logistics, more support than you, better equipment, blah, 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 than you, stuff like that. They just got more going for them. They have more training and stuff. Guerrillas typically are a civilian populace or coalition that came together, local stuff like that. So, to not die, essentially all these videos are going to have the same kind of principles. You want to do hit and run techniques on logistics. Some states, depending on the terrain, you're going to have to solely do those, like Kansas. That's pretty much the only way that you could, that's the first video in the series, that's pretty much the only way you could effectively take on a force in Kansas, is to choke the logistics, because if they can't eat, if they can't shoot, they're dead. So with Florida, you can kind of do the same thing, but everything with the swamp and all that, it is very close quarter, and then boats, rivers, marshes, any kind of aquatic vessel, that comes into play, guys. That comes into play here, and that is a new aspect to it that we're definitely going to have to take into consideration. Now, that one section I did record about river ambushes will be included in this video right before the naval aspects. Stay tuned for that. I do a lot of work into that. So like I said, guys, hit and run techniques, ambushes, stuff like that. The difference between here and Kansas, I keep comparing that because that was the first part. The difference is, here we have more cover, we have more concealment using the thick trees, using the underbrush of the swamp, of the forest, briars, you know. Also, a big thing in Florida, we have to think about, you know, the snakeheads, the anacondas, even though they're invasive species, you know, pythons and, you know, crocodiles, alligators, crap like that. I don't think the crocodile, alligator, whatever, same thing, blah, 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 whatever, don't matter. All the horrid wildlife that's down there, you know, the spiders, the venomous snakes, stuff like that in the Everglades. It's essentially going to make it hell on any invading force if they want to go in the forest. And looking at Florida on a map, all the forest and national land where you can't really have, you know, there's no big cities or anything, like the very rural, poor parts of Florida, that is going to be absolute hell for any invading force. Not even because of the populace, but because of the lack of infrastructure, how hard it is to get anything in there. You know, radio, whatever, because it's just thick brush, stuff like that, marshes, you know, the gators, stuff like that, and just the swamp, everything involved. And then you put the populace in there, look, it's just not going to be pretty. Now, what is some things that they could do? Now, this ain't legal advice, this is all hypothetical. Setting traps would be crazy. You get some swamp people out there that can live off the land. Key factor is being able to live and stay out for weeks at a time. But you send some swamp people out on a recon operation, and then you got, you know, them staying out and setting trap after trap after trap, putting barbed wire right under the water level for the boats to catch, stuff like that. Making IEDs for the boats, because like I said, the boats, the small watercraft is going to be the main objective in Florida because of all the rivers and stuff. As soon as they start transporting logistical supplies up the river, you know, you put that barbed wire right, or sea wire, you know, razor wire, something right at the water level, right like an inch or two below the water, and just do layers upon layers of that, you know, every 5 foot or so. It could at least slow them down. And when they slow down, to shoot the shit out their boat. Not too shabby. You plant some IEDs, some tripwires underwater, some floating trash, you know, psychological warfare. Just have trash in the water. They might think it's a bomb. That's going to stop them, and then just shoot the shit out of them right there. Like, you know, this is just child's play at this point. Using the rivers is a big advantage. Also, you got to think about, you know, highly populated areas like Miami and stuff like that. Now, there's over 6 million people from what I read. I don't know how true that is. But even if 1 million, like a sixth of people actually fought back, you have 1 million armed individuals going up against invaders. I mean, all you got to do is set a perimeter around the city, checkpoints, roadblocks, and anything that looks like an invader, just shoot it. It's that simple. We're not playing by Geneva Convention. Conventional forces can because they have the logistics. Civilians cannot. You set up roadblocks, you set up this, that. You test their local knowledge. If they say they're from the swamp, ask them a question that only people from the swamp would know. Stuff like that. If they, I'm not saying racially profile, but like real talk, you know. If it is a very specific country known for a very specific thing, and they're doing that thing, might want to just pop them and then just throw them. I'm just saying. But anyways, what I'm saying is, it's not too bad. You just do checkpoints around major cities, stuff like that. You know, you're controlling the flow. You have people guarding and manning the outer perimeter of the city 24/7. You know, the subways. I don't know. I don't know that much about Miami. I'm guessing there's subways. If there's not subways or anything, whatever public transport is, you have the perimeter secured. You have the sewer system secured. Stuff like that. I mean, protecting the city is easy money. You just set up checkpoints around the perimeter. Now, there's a lot of ways to get in, but with 1 million people involved, Yeah, as long as you can somewhat get that organized in different groups, and even including gangs, because even the people slinging crack right now on the street, they're gonna love being able to shoot up people and not get really arrested, because the rule of law is out the window. So like the gangs are probably gonna form a coalition, and it's just gonna be like everybody's like, yeah, truce until this is over or whatever. I mean, seriously. And, and I mean, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I'm going a little bit too schizo here. So for a city, secure the perimeter, the sewer system, stuff like that. I mean, easy peasy. Have radio relay points stacked around the city. You need organizers definitely for something that big, a force that big. You need radio people. You need command. You need like a general. You need stuff like that. Somebody that has experience, whether it's the former police commissioner or whatever. You need someone that is known for leading and is a good leader. And you need multiple good leaders for each kind of division or platoon, I guess you could call it. Back to just tactics and stuff. Hit and run techniques. Target logistics. Those swamp people, if you want, I keep calling them swamp people. If you want to go out and you want to stay in the bush for weeks with you and your crew, and you're doing like reconnaissance ops, or you designated infantry or something like that, you're going to have to learn to survive on your own. And this is a big thing I've been trying to do recently. You have to learn to live off the land, but also supplement that. Let's say if you can't hunt something or you don't see any game that day, having food, having MREs, stuff in your pack, stuff like that, and just setting up listening post, looking post, LPOP, stuff like that. Learning camouflage techniques, really good concealment. You need to know how to make a ghillie suit. You need to stay hidden. You need to be like a shadow, essentially. I think in Australia, the trapdoor spider, I'm pretty sure it's in Australia, it'll sit there kind of in sand, loose sand or dirt, and then something will walk along. It's just hiding in wait. And as soon as it gets within like 2 or 3 inches of its hole, it jumps right up and grabs its prey in under like half a second. Crazy. Look up a trapdoor spider if you don't know what I'm talking about. That's essentially how you want to be in Florida. You want to sit and wait in the forest, in the swamp. Stealth camping, essentially living off the land with your crew, with your buddies. And as soon as you see something, you act. Don't hesitate, just act. Take it out, loot the supplies, get rid of the evidence. So what I'm saying is, take the wrecked boat or whatever and sink it, or do something with the crew, feed them to the gators after you strip them of their weapons and magazines. All hypothetical, not legal advice, by the way. We're just talking asymmetrical warfare here. Just stuff like that. So I guess if you live in Florida, if you're not in the city, living off the land, survival, camouflage, basic recon operations, and basic, just infantry techniques. How to do ambushes, stuff like that. So now we're going to get into the river portion. Hopefully you enjoy that. It's a little bit more in detail. Like I said, I was initially going to do these in like super specific detail, and I do apologize for not doing this one. It's just I had like 6 different sections, and each one was like a couple hours long, if not an hour. I'm just saying. So I apologize for that. But hopefully you enjoy this, the main squeeze.
Alright guys, so in this section we are specifically talking about rivers. Why rivers? Because in Florida, rivers and marshlands are everywhere. If you go on Google Maps especially, and you zoom in like I was doing and looking at all the different variations, something that all the sections of Florida has is really wide streams, waterways, and rivers. So I drove and kind of roughed over to my nearest river system, still about 50 minutes away. So, you know, please like, comment, subscribe. I mean, come on. I'm out here doing it for you. But the thing is, guys, if any conventional force decided to invade Florida, there is a high amphibious presence. We'll talk about the Navy and the naval assets later on, but for the rivers, it would look especially enticing for small boat teams like special operations. You know, you think the American elements like Navy SEALs, MARSOC, stuff like that. You always see them with the big boats or the rafts looking things, and stuff like that. Or you see the SWIC operatives with the U.S. Navy and stuff. They're on boat teams and they have a 50 cal on the boat. Now, while those are good at getting into areas to infiltrate and then a quick egress out and a good way to escape, the simple fact is there's a bunch of disadvantages to that, even for special operations and conventional forces. And we are going to go into this and how to defeat those conventional forces using guerrilla warfare. So specifically in rivers and stuff like this, you want to look for, or my bad, specifically in rivers and stuff like this, it is extremely easy to ambush these targets, because even though a boat isn't necessarily a sitting duck, the people in it, it's going to be harder to naturally shoot outside of the boat. Even if they have a mounted machine gun, it's going to be harder for them to maneuver the boat. They can't come to a full stop. Even if they kill the motor, the river's either pushing this way or that way, not to mention the momentum of the boat. So it's a harder shooting platform for them to make accurate fire from. And also, like I said, they're not a sitting duck, but even if they're going 30 miles an hour, it should not be hard to take a boat out. It's literally right here. You can predict the path. It's either going up the river or it's going down the river. It's super simple stuff, guys. Now, to compound off that, how to successfully pull off a river ambush, this is the best you can get. And this is so simple. Using ambushing boats is just so much easier than planning a good point or area ambush on land. You want to look for bends in the river, so that's kind of why I went to this spot. I'll zoom in later so you can kind of get a better idea, but essentially this river goes like this and goes left. And what you want to do, you want to plan for right when they get out of the bend. So let's say they're coming inland from the ocean and they're looking for, you know, logistics. Let's say you got a supply warehouse right off the river or something, or, you know, just something. They're coming upriver, up the bend, around the bend, up or down, don't matter. They're coming around the bend. I'm going to see them way before they see me. And I'm not even hidden. I'm not even really camouflaged. I don't have my top on. I don't have my face paint. I got this orange on my, you know, hand mic right here. Like, guys, I'm not even trying, but I guarantee they would not see me if I was just a step behind these little branches over here. They wouldn't see me, especially because the sunlight is shining directly on them as well. But if you want to compound that and actually build using local foliage and hide in a real bush or behind, you know, good concealment, really good concealment, they're going to be more focused on steering the boat than pulling security. I don't care how well trained you are. Naturally, you're wanting the boat to stay afloat before anything else in that sense, especially in Florida with gators and snakes and stuff like that. They're going to be more focused on the boat than pulling good security. You can't do 100%. You might be able to do like an 80-20 split or like a, you know, 60-40 split, but you're not going to be able to pull 100% security during amphibious operations. So anyways, in this scenario, they're coming around the bend. You always want to look for a bend. You always want to come out. You want to be outside of the bend. So essentially, if they're coming this way, I want to be here. But if they're coming that way, while this could essentially work because it bends back that way over there, I would want to be over there. You want to be where they're headed. Whatever intelligence you can gather there is how you would plan that. whether you're drawing them in, we'll get to drawing them in later and how I would do it, or you're just pre-planning and just guessing and putting a bunch of gorillas alongside the major river system. So all you got to do is just hide in the bushes and wait. That is as simple as they can get. Now, weapon systems, ARs, AKs, semi-automatic, at least intermediate if not high caliber weapons, but also semi-automatic 12 gauge shotguns with double aught buck. Now hear me out. They're coming around the bend right here. They're exposed. Let's say, I'm kind of hoping the camera can see it. There's a tree on the side of the river that goes like this. I'm going to plant 3 dudes with semi-auto 12 gauge shotguns right there. Roughly about 15-20 meters back there, and make sure they're gillied up and whatever. And as soon as they come around the bend and they get right into the firing lanes of those 3, what's going to happen is, here's the front of the boat, here's the back of the boat. Dude number 1 in this case, where we're going upriver, dude number 1 is going to shoot the engine out. He's going to mag dump or tube dump in this case 5 or 6 double aught buck into the back and into the side of the raft, the whole of the boat itself. Dude number 1 is going to go for the driver. Dude number 2 is going to go and try to shoot the operator of the boat. With double aught buck, that's not hard to do. He's going to shoot the heck out of the hull, but number 1, the driver of the boat, and whoever the men on the boat. Up here in the front is dude number 3. He's going to shoot the hole right at belt line. It just depends, you know, how the boat is made. You know, if it's one of the vast looking boats with the 50 cal on it, he can pop a couple and just work his way up. Because you do want to hit the men, obviously, because as soon as that first shot cracks off and the volley starts, you know, it could just be a couple seconds they got, but that's a couple seconds they can be shooting it. Especially if they got a 50 cal. So, keep that in mind. You guys want to work, I'm not saying practice, I don't know your laws down there, whatever, but if you duck hunt, it's essentially duck hunting. You know what a duck hunting blind is? You make a duck hunting blind pretty much. You make sure you camo yourself really good and you just wait. As soon as they come around the bend, and this is the hardest part, is timing it right. Let's say it's just one boat for ease of explaining. That's what you want to do. As soon as that driver is lined up with the middle man is when you need to start firing, and not just 1 or 2 shots. Dump that whole 5 or 6 shotgun shells into that boat. It doesn't stand a chance. Now, but we're not done yet. We're not done yet. Now we're talking singular boat. We're going to get into more boats. You know, how to assess more boats as it gets it. If they just sent out 1 special operations boat, they're already dead. But in this bend, so we got them down here. I'm getting more gorillas with rifles. This is where your AKs and your ARs, your intermediate and large AR-10, you know, 308 calibers, what they're for. We got a little brim right here. We got a dirt mound right there. I don't know if you can see that. We got a dirt mound right there. And then across the way we got more foliage over there. Lots of foliage over there. I'm putting a couple, one on top of the berm, one on the side right there. They're going to communicate. One could have binos, whatever. I'd recommend magnified optics for this just because of the stretch of the river. Having a 3 or 4 power scope might not be that bad. So we're going to have riflemen here, and we're also going to have riflemen there. Now we want to make sure their sectors of fire don't cross each other, because this one's going to be roughly 100 meters back on that side of the river, right out of the bend, so they're going to have to come way up here. This is the last line of defense over here for this particular ambush. These guys are going to fire as soon as they hear those shotguns fire. They're already going to be on target, but they're not going to give away their position until the shotguns start firing. So essentially what's going to happen to the boat is it's coming upstream, shotguns go, they're taking it 90 degrees to the right flank. They're getting 8 up. Let's see, 5 times 3, 15 double aught buck shells. 15 times 9 is what? What is that? That's 125. That's a guess. It's hot out here. If I got it wrong, I'll pop it up. That's 125 36 caliber projectiles coming their way. 125 in the span of like 4 or 5, the span of like 3 to 4 seconds has just been dumped into their bodies in the boat. Then we got the AK and the AR, maybe with some kind of optic, eating the shit out of the front of the boat, just spraying the shit out of the front of the boat. I don't care how much training you have, you're gonna die. There is no, and if you somehow take them out somehow, even though they have cover, not just concealment on the berm, and then you have these dudes back here. These dudes back here, once they think they made it and they're assessing their casualties, even if they float just 20 foot more, they're in the firing lane of those across the river, decimated. It's a death sentence. Anything on a boat is just so easy to plan around. Now, let's talk about numbers. Theoretically, that could take out 3 boats. You start adding 4 or 5 or like 6 of those boats, the first 2 guaranteed cannon fodder. Whoever's leading those boats got some balls, or they're just stupid, because there is no other way. There is no other way. There's no way to defeat this, an ambush like this, especially just using river assets. Let's say there's 3, you could probably take out 3. But as soon as you get 4 or 5, that's when it gets hard. That's when you're going to need more guerrillas. And we already had the shotgun position and the rifle position and the other rifle position. Well, this time we can keep that because we don't know 100% how many boats are actually coming. Well, let's say that our shotguns down there notice, let's say there's 5 boats coming up here. They're just not going to fire. They're going to let them pass. Got the riflemen, they're going to tuck behind, make sure that nobody sees them. They're going to crawl, they're going to duck down, you know, let's say, and preferably they'd have cover and concealment, is what I'm saying. We're going to keep going, keep going. Once that 5th boat is in line with the shotguns are just going to go ahead and eat the last one up. They might even split shift their shots. So you could have number 3 guy, the one closest to us, eat up the 4th boat, while gunners 1 and 2 are eating up the 5th boat. So everybody's going to shift their attention back to the shotguns, and then the riflemen are going to kick off. And in this case, it would probably be better to have, so here's the river, have riflemen there, 25, 100 meters down, have riflemen on that side, about 50 meters. 50 meters down, have them on that side, 50 meters down, have them on the other side, and kind of flip-flop them. And their sectors be roughly just perpendicular to them, or just right in front of them, so they're not shooting at each other. But if you let the boats pass until you get to the last man down there and the shotguns down there, they're taking fire on all sides, and everybody's not necessarily shooting at each other because they're shooting down into the river. It's child's play planning river ambushes. I wanted to come down here to an actual river to show you guys and then just kind of teach. I'm gonna get some more footage and stuff to kind of explain. I might do like an overview, but this is the main way that you would win, especially amphibious fights in Florida. Now, I also got to say this: how would I do it? I would manipulate the masses and the civilian populace and say that we have local caches here, local caches down there, down the river, give a very specific grid coordinate and location. Not only that, I would hop on a Baofeng or a walkie-talkie radio, something really easy to hack, so I wouldn't be doing DMR or digital radios. I wouldn't even be running scramble like I normally do, that these newer Baofengs allow you to do. I'd be talking just straight analog, no CTCS tone, no nothing, just straight analog, and I'd be on here, I'd be yapping. Now, here's the thing. The bad information that I'm feeding the invaders listening would be where my logistical supplies are, which it's false. It's all false information. Logistical supplies, where my men are, I'm going to say I'm really low on men. We don't have any there. We need to get more. And I'm just going to act completely dumb to the idea that somebody's listening, but in reality, I'm setting a trap using the comms. So I'm sitting here, I'm like blasting on here, just, yeah, man, I just got 1 or 2 dudes down there watching it. I don't have the manpower. They all want to stay in the city, blah, blah, blah. At grid coordinate, blah, 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 -81, blah, blah, blah. I got a bunch of my ammunition stored and all my MREs and stuff right off the river. You know, you want to be blabbing like that, but you want to use somewhat military lingo so they think you're serious. And what they're going to do, they're going to think you're just a dumbass civilian that doesn't know what they're doing. But especially since they've already encountered civilian forces during the initial assault fighting back, they're going to be like, oh, this is going to be easy. So they're going to send special ops on the boats to come get your ass. And that's their mistake. They completely underestimated you, and they will underestimate the civilian populace. That's just how it is. So it doesn't matter if they're Spetsnaz. It doesn't matter who the invader is. They're going to die. There's no other way. I mean, that's just how it is. That's how you would do it in Florida. You would use the wetlands. At any bend of a river or a stream, if they're using watercraft, that's how you're going to do it. Now, with big boats, that's going to be a whole nother section we're about to hit on probably next. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Let me know. I'm putting in a lot of work actually going to different locations that I know of, or that are within like a 2 or 3 hour drive of me, that I know that could be useful for the video. So hopefully you really appreciate that. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy doing it, but it really is a hassle. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of gas. So I got Patreon. I'm about to get buy me a coffee. I'd really appreciate it, guys. Seriously, I make nothing from YouTube. Zilp, nada. I'd appreciate a donation. So.
All right, so we're back. To finish and wrap this up, we got to talk about the naval aspect, because Florida is a peninsula. It's surrounded by ocean on 3 sides. Me and the Discord, it took me and the Discord about 2 days of talking, and I mean just straight, everybody put in some work on it, did some research about how a civilian populace could, in theory, take on a invading navy. And the simple answer is, it's basically impossible without losing a lot of guerrillas or fighters. There will have to be sacrifices. I'm going to tell you our best theories on how it could be done, but I was in the Army, I wasn't in the Navy. Nobody I know but like one dude was in the Navy. You know, I don't live on that side of the state or whatever. Like, there is no Navy recruiting office or nothing. I don't know anybody in the immediate area where I live that was in the Navy. So, here's the thing. A bunch of people on yachts and stuff trying to take on a warship is just not going to work. You have to have people with very specific skills, and I am not responsible for what you look up or what you make, but you need divers, lots of divers, underwater welders that know how to make explosives. Alright, now just hear me out. All theory right here, all theory. One of the things that we came up with is warships have big guns and have crews with guns. However, they're on a moving platform. It's naturally harder to shoot off of. You get a bunch of speedboats to go out there. Let's say they're about a mile offshore or so, the warship is. You send 5 or 6 speedboats out there, and you're just going around it. You got a couple dudes with AKs or ARs, whatever, with guns on it, just spraying to the side of the warship, trying to hit the crew. You're essentially like a horsefly biting a horse at this point. But don't worry, because we're going to put that horse down. So essentially, while the speedboats are going around the boat, just absolutely zooming, spraying, just mag dumping, trying to hit the crew and stuff, shooting the windows out, all that crap. Not the portholes, but the windows up where the command is. Just absolutely spraying the crap out of this warship. You're going to get another boat with a team of divers. You want to make sure the team of divers is in the back, or you have one diver per boat. They act like they got shot, they fall overboard on the boat, they go under the water. They have equipment. Okay. They start cutting with their blow torches, with their, welding equipment, all that. They start cutting into the hull or the bottom of the boat. they're making small holes, they're planting explosives down there, then they get the hell out of there. I would definitely recommend swimming as far as they could swim before they get picked up, because they're naturally going to have to slow down to get picked up, by the speedboats, because if they stop and they're within rifle range, they're going to get absolutely obliterated. However, once you plant explosives all in the bottom of that boat or the warship, I mean, you're just waiting to get out of the blast range, really. Now, I don't know how to make explosives. I'm not an EOD guy, but you're just gonna, that's one of the theories we came up with. Now, you could perfect that. Like I said, I don't know too much about ocean warfare. I'm not a Navy dude, but with Florida being a peninsula, we're gonna have to talk about it. Kind of my theory was, as soon as something kicked off, you get people out there planting, just throwing trash bags in there to fake out they think they're IEDs, but also doing real IEDs within the trash, doing real IEDs underwater, like underwater mines, stuff like that. Like, if you haven't know anybody with diving experience, it might be good to look into. Now, I'm not legally responsible. That's the last time I'm saying that, but underwater mines, stuff like that. Just setting a ton of underwater mines all the way around the state, pretty much, on all sides. That's definitely a big deterrent. Now, here's the problem, though. You trying to do that and then maybe have snipers on the shore? That's good, but as soon as they pinpoint your location, they're just going to bomb you. They're going to blow the whole grid, your whole grid square. They're just going to bomb the crap out of it. They can shoot, I think most warships can shoot like 25 miles away offshore. And at least, even without satellites or electronic guides, they can accurately make hits 3 miles offshore, seems like, from my research. So, I read an article, did some deep research on RC boats and drones and RC planes, and using them as bombs, strapping bombs to RC boats. Now, that sounds crazy, but they're fairly cheap, and you can get a swarm of boats and drones with explosives and do essentially a drone swarm on them, and that is probably the best you're going to do. Now, I don't know how you're going to penetrate the hull of the warship, but maybe if you do the drones top down, might not be a terrible idea. Especially if you have a longer range drone and you have about 100 of them with bombs strapped to them, you could definitely take out a warship. All you got to do is, while they're spraying in the air trying to get rid of them, make sure they're fiber optic drones so they cannot be jammed. Fiber optic signals at this current point cannot be jammed. However, just copper wire can, by utilizing or overpowering the frequency that the drone uses to operate. But with fiber optic drones, they, as far as I know, they cannot be hacked. You get that into play, and then you just kamikaze the shit out the warship. That is the best possible. That's the best thing I could think of. Now, getting that many drones, the logistics, the supplies, I don't know. But long story short, it's almost impossible for a civilian force to take on a Navy. And I don't like saying that, because you know me, I always like trying to be uplifting to the underdogs. But we just have to be honest here, guys. Thankfully, the U.S. Navy exists. You know, this ain't never going to happen, but if it did and it was just the civilian populace, you're going to have to get really creative. And even a stupid idea, like we just mentioned, all those were kind of like off base. That is your best bet. If you have any, and I'm talking any, ideas down below on how to take on a Navy, let me know. Seriously, I mean, we pondered this for a couple of days and just really thought about it, shot ideas back and forth, but there really is no good way to take on a Navy or any kind of naval, like big, and we're talking warship assets like the size of a couple houses or a floating city. I mean, you can't really, as a civilian and what we have access to naturally, we can't really take that on. It really is a scary thing. I'm just glad I don't live on the coast, But anyways, guys, give me your thoughts down below. moving on from this, I'm going to do another poll. I'm going to try to make them a little bit more in-depth. I do apologize that this was not as in-depth as the first one, but it was just a tall order, and I'll be honest, I think I just bit off more than I could chew, and I do apologize for that 100%. But, you know, like, comment, and sub. Order of R. Abianto. God bless you guys. Peace.